911. What's your emergency?
My friend isn't breathing. Please help. I think she's drunk or overdosed maybe. And it looks like she's been attacked.
Alright, stay calm. What's the address?
The address is...
Okay, help will be arriving soon. Are the doors unlocked and the lights on in your home?
Yes, they are. Please hurry. Please.
At 2:15 a.m. on the 3rd of May 2010, police arrived at 22-year-old Yardley Love's college apartment to a distressing scene. One of Love's roommates, Caitlin, who had gone back to talk with her, was met with horror when realizing what was in Yardley's room. There was a large hole punched in her bedroom door, and in the center of the room, Yardley Love's lifeless body, face down, lying in blood. Caitlin immediately notified the police. The police arrived at the gruesome scene just a few minutes later. Upon arrival, they anticipated the death to be some sort of alcohol or drug recovery case due to the details given in the original phone call, but immediately after seeing the body, they realized there was something far more sinister at play. It was quickly discovered that there were clearly visible physical injuries across Love's body, including a black eye, bruising along the right side of her face, and large bleeding gashes along her legs. Attempts were hastily made to revive the girl, but after half an hour of the original discovery, Yardley Love was pronounced dead, presumed murdered. To understand the full context of this case, we must first look into Yardley Love's life and school background. Yardley was a very smart college student who easily excelled in all her classes. But not only was she an amazing student, she was also a great athlete. In fact, Yardley loved to play sports, having a special love for lacrosse and being exceptionally talented at it. The thing Yardley adored more than all of that, though, was her loving boyfriend, 22-year-old George Hughley. The two were outwardly known as completely normal, and even quite a charming couple. But unbeknownst to most, George had an exceedingly violent past, causing many brushes with the law. In 2007, he was found in possession of alcohol while underage, and just a year later, he was arrested for reckless driving, being drunk in public, and resisting arrest outside a fraternity house in Virginia. He was tased, given a suspended sentence with 6 months of probation. None of this was disclosed to his university, making his subsequent violent behavior within the school even more of a secret. George's main issues, though, were with both alcohol abuse and anger. Just 1 year into his relationship with Yardley, he attacked one of his teammates after hearing a rumor that they had kissed her. And in another concerning display of anger soon after, he had to be pulled off of Yardley after pinning her down out of pure rage. All of this caused their relationship to become heavily unstable, described by some as rocky and unpredictable. Yardley was known to be very uncomfortable with her boyfriend's use of alcohol and was often scared by his rage-fueled outbursts. So after almost 2.5 years of dating, Yardley finally decided to break up with him in April of 2010. This is why directly after her murder, many of Yardley's friends pointed directly to George when asked who they thought could have been the suspect. Her friends had also caught wind of emails and messages between the couple, in which Yardley had apologized for the breakup, only to be met with the violent and angry responses. On the 4th of May, just over 24 hours after the murder, Hughley was charged with the murder of Yardley Love and was brought in for questioning. The entire interrogation was recorded with police cameras and showcases from start to finish a tragic tale of a man blissfully unaware of the nightmare he is responsible for. The interview begins with the detective informing George that he is being detained, and as such is not free to leave the interrogation, but at no point does she explain what crime it is that's being investigated. At this point, George is not aware that Yardley Love is dead. Questioning begins with George explaining his whereabouts on May 2nd, the night of Yardley's murder.
I went to dinner with my dad and my two buddies.
Where was that? Where did you?
I went to C&L.
Okay.
And then went home, went to the bar for like a little while. And
Right. What time did you go out to eat?
that was probably 7:30 with dinner.
Okay.
And then went home, I drank a few beers, went, like, I went to the bar for a little while. I went to
Which bar?
Boylan Heights.
Well, okay.
Then I went over to talk to Yardley.
Who's Yardley?
Yardley is my former girlfriend.
George explains that after a night of drinking, he'd gone to see Yardley in her own apartment. The detective uses this as an opportunity to strengthen the notion that this interview has nothing to do with Yardley by simply asking who she was. This will become important later in the interrogation.
When I went over to talk to Yardley, I was like, Yardley, and she was like already totally freaked out because of what she did this past, like, a few days ago, and we haven't talked since, and I was just gonna go talk to her. And she was already like, freaking out.
George mentions that Yardley was freaked out when he arrived at her apartment, apparently due to the innocent reasoning that they hadn't talked since the breakup, and she simply wasn't expecting to see him. We know this notion to be untrue, and her shock was likely down to a drunken George appearing in her apartment, and quite literally kicking down her bedroom door. Nevertheless, the detective stays empathetic and unbiased in her comments, again, enforcing the idea that she's just there to collect information and has nothing against George himself.
What happened next?
What happened next, and she kept hitting her head against the wall while she was sitting on the bed, and I was like, and I grabbed her and I like shook her. I was like, stop, like we need to, like, and looked at her. I was like, we need to like talk about this. And like, I mean, I was holding her arms and stuff, but like I never struck her. I never like hit her like in the face or anything. I was just like, we need to talk. And she was so floppy, a fish out of the water, like so like all this, all because of what happened last week. And I was like, listen, like I'm not here to like fight with you or like do anything, like here to talk to you. And she's like, no, like get away from me, all this like, and like that's what happened. Like I left, like she was in her bed. I think her nose was bleeding a little bit.
George goes into more detail about the time he spent with Yardley that evening, but describes how she had apparently been hurting herself, and the only time he put his hands on her was in an attempt to restrain her and keep her safe. But this doesn't necessarily explain the bloody nose he described her as having. The man's answers are also somewhat scattered. He adds unnecessary detail and repeats himself, the first sign that he is beginning to feel panicked and uncomfortable. The detective goes on to ask what it was that had happened last week, to which he explains that after they had broken up, Yardley had allegedly stormed into his apartment and assaulted him. He doubles down on the idea that this is why he went to see her that night, and at no point did he hit or strike the girl at all.
And I never like hit her, never struck her, never, and nothing happened.
All right, so you go over there, knock on the door.
Her front door was open, her room door was closed. I knocked, like Yardley, like she heard me open the door and went in.
All right, went in where?
To her room.
All right, straight to her bedroom?
Straight to her bedroom, yeah, I mean.
How'd you get through the door?
Her door or the front door?
Her door.
Actually, it might have been locked.
It was.
Just these two words from the detective are enough to plant seeds of doubt in George's mind. Questions like, how does she know it was locked, arise, and he begins to mentally question why he's even being detained in the first place. This sets him more on edge, and he begins to fumble over his words, seemingly flustered and taken aback.
Yeah. Actually, yeah.
Just be honest with me.
Yeah, no, yeah, it was locked, yeah. Because I think I put a hole.
Yeah, you punched a hole through the door?
Pretty sure, actually, now. Yeah, I used to have that, yeah. I was like, listen, like, what you pulled last week was outrageous. Like, I just want to talk to you.
Why'd you punch the door then?
Because I want to talk to her.
George is now clearly concerned and on edge, and is caught in his first lie after admitting that he had punched a hole in the door, signaling that he may have been more violent and angry than he'd originally let on, and possibly showing how he may begin to open up and explain more throughout the interrogation.
You know what you're talking about?
I mean, about so many different things.
Okay. Like what?
Like what she did last week. Like went to like Carolina, how she attacked me. You know, like she went to Carolina and hooked up with someone Sunday when we were still trying to figure out things. Came over, attacked me on Tuesday. You know, and I'm just sitting like, I was like, this is outrageous.
More information is now given as George opens up. It goes beyond him saying that he was attacked to saying that he felt as though she had cheated on him, all while he was trying to make things better between them. He expresses frustration, an emotion that can easily turn into resentment and anger under the right conditions, such as alcohol abuse.
And then we like wrestled above the ground the same way. Her nose started bleeding, and then she ended. I think she was back in bed, and I left. I was like, this is not going anywhere.
How'd she get back in bed?
We were like wrestling, and we stood up, and I tossed her, I pushed her onto the bed. I was like, go to bed, like, I'll talk to you later. I'm like, I didn't like throw her, but like, we were like standing up at this point after we were resting on the ground. She had like a bloody nose. And I was like, go to bed.
Okay. And you kind of tossed her on the bed and you left?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you go back and check on her at any point?
No, I did not.
Okay. Did you touch her neck area at all? Did you choke her at one point?
I may have grabbed her a little bit by the neck when we were like, but I never like strangled her.
Okay.
But I mean, during the whole like commotion, you know, like I might have grabbed her neck, but I never was like strangling her.
Okay. All right.
The bloodied nose is a perfect example to describe how George continues to open up regularly throughout the interrogation. Originally, he had no idea how it had come about. His best explanation is that it happened while Yardley was hitting her own head against the wall, but now all of a sudden it happened while the two of them were wrestling on the floor. This came alongside admissions that he had pushed her onto the bed and that he may have even strangled her at one point. While he's still not made aware that he's killed the girl, pressure is continuing to rise as the truth begins to surface.
She has a pretty good knot on her head. That's why I'm asking how you can explain how that would have happened.
I mean, I don't even know when a knot. I mean,
like on the side of her head, she's been hit pretty good right there. So I'm just trying to figure out, did you hit her with something?
No.
Was that targeted to the wall?
never touched her or struck her or anything.
Well, you touched her. You had your hands on her.
I said never struck her.
Okay.
Never at all. Like.
Well, I'm trying to figure out why she's got a
why.
black eye and why she's got a big lump right there.
I mean, I don't
So
know.
you never hit her with anything?
I don't know.
Is that what you're saying? You've never hit
I don't know how.
with anything.
So she's got a.
So okay. All right. No, that's fine. That's fine.
The detective now decides to mount pressure even more from this point forward. Instead of letting George take the conversation where he wants, she begins to ask questions, passively accusing him of injuring her in different ways. It becomes clear that the detective is trying to raise emotions and force George into a corner, making him flustered in an attempt to get information that he wouldn't have given under normal circumstances. The next 10 minutes or so of the interrogation consist mostly of fairly placid questions about that night, where he went when he left, how much he'd had to drink, what time he went to bed, and other similar queries. However, after leaving him alone in a room for a while, the detectives return once again to turn up the pressure for the 22-year-old.
Is there another reason why you two broke up? Any arguments? Any past physical violence? Okay, because keep in mind, before we've talked to you, we've talked to other people too.
No, I understand that.
Okay.
I mean, that night that she found the text messages in my phone, that night I was more drunk than I've probably ever been.
Right.
And she did the same thing, like, you know, like yelling at me, like hitting me while I'm drunk. And I actually laid on her and like held her, like detained her kind of. And she ended up like leaving, but that happened that night.
How did you detain her?
I mean, sir, like that night I was.
Did you let go of her yourself, or did other people have to come and get you off of her?
I'm not. You know, I really don't remember that night at all.
Not at all.
No, not at all.
So maybe because you maybe smothered her a little bit that night, maybe you choked her a little bit.
No, I don't think I choked her. She never said I choked her. She said I laid on her and held her.
Right.
And like.
How did you lay down on her?
She said I literally like laid on her.
Was she face down and you laid on top of her, or?
I don't even know. We like we've hung out since that night, like a bunch of times. Like actually probably a dozen times since that night.
Right.
And we haven't really talked about that since that night. Like she's never said that like I was choking her or anything. She said I literally like laid on her and like kind of like didn't let her.
She's about what, 105, 110 pounds soaking wet. You're almost double her size.
Yeah, probably.
You don't think that would maybe be enough to take the breath out of her if you're laying down on top of her?
I mean, I never thought about it like that, but I never like hurt her.
Right. Well, we never mentioned anything to her, to her face, and you constantly bring up that you didn't punch her in the face.
No, I know.
We never even asked you that question.
I know. I mean,
Did you maybe at least smack her?
No.
Hey, snap out of it or something like that?
No.
What's wrong with you?
I did not. No,
Nothing like
no,
that?
I never. No. I mean, I'm in here for assault charges.
Right.
That's why.
No, I
I mean-
never told you you were.
Yeah.
We
Someone
had
said,
any warrants on you.
A mistake like this can often be seen as an informal admission. George was at no point charged or detained for assault. He was there for murder. George becomes panicked after knowing he made a mistake here, so the questions are piled on from here on out.
Have you ever threatened any harm to her?
No.
Why'd you take her computer?
I don't know. I have no idea.
There's maybe because there's evidence on the computer, emails that you sent?
No, there's no. I mean, you can read all the emails and everything back and forth.
There's no threats. There's not going to be anything on that computer that we're going to bring up
No.
forensically
No.
that came from George saying, hey, you know what?
No.
I found out that you're cheating on me.
No.
Why'd you take that computer then?
Probably because she was like not talking to me. You know, like she did all this stuff, and I just walked out of there with the computer.
Why would this little girl just for no reason start attacking you out of the blue?
You can ask my friends that the night that the other night.
Yeah, the other night.
I have 3 eyewitnesses for that one.
Right.
She walked in and started punching me in the face, hit me with her purse, hit me with her cell phone, and literally when I stood up and backed away and was like, you got to stop, like, get away from me, she came coming back for more.
Okay. Why in the heck would you break down her door then? Locked
I
door means don't
wanted
come
to
in.
talk to her, and I sent her
No,
emails.
that's more than that, man. That's rage, the way that door was kicked in. That was pure rage. You must have been seriously mad.
No.
You've told us everything else. If
I've
you're
told you
seriously
everything.
mad, you could tell us.
I've told you guys everything. I'm not hiding anything from you. I've told you literally everything.
But why kick it in? That's just pure rage, man.
I wanted to talk to
if you were
her.
that-
I wanted to talk to her. I wanted to talk
Have you
to her.
always been that way with her as far as if she didn't want to do something, it was kind of your way or the highway type of thing?
No.
And I understand that, you had a lot of alcohol in you last night. Do you think that could have maybe led into why you were, fed your emotions to kick in that door?
That may have made me rationalize kicking in the door to open it up, but it was all strictly to go in there and talk to her. I wanted to talk to her. I've told her that. I've sent her emails. You can see all the emails. You can see everything.
Okay.
I've said like I think 3 emails. Like, I want to come talk to you when you'll say like F yourself, like, dude, And I should not have gone over there when like I was drinking, but like that when I was like that's made me emotional, so I wanted to go talk to her. That's why I kicked in the door. That's why I was like trying to talk. That's why I wanted to talk to her.
Now, I know you mentioned you fell on her like a week ago, right, when you were laying down.
No, that was
a month ago.
A month.
Well, you detained her, right? Did you detain her last night at all?
No.
Did you fall down on top of her? Wrestling?
We were wrestling on the ground for like a little
Did y'all
bit.
wrestle on the bed at all?
No, I never I shook her.
No, I mean just kind of hold her down until she calmed down on the bed.
No, if anything that would.
and
if anything that would have been like on the floor, but like.
Because I'm sure you didn't want to hurt her. That way, if you were restraining her on the bed, she wouldn't be able to hurt herself as much as
I never was like laying on her like in the bed. Like when we were on the floor, when her nose started bleeding, we were like wrestling around, and that's when her nose started bleeding.
Was it pretty noisy when you all were wrestling around?
No, I mean.
Was she screaming, yelling?
No, she wasn't. No.
I mean, if I'm cracking my head in the wall, I'm going to be saying, "Ow."
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, she was not screaming.
Yeah.
She should have been. Probably. I mean, maybe. I don't know.
Why do you think she should have?
I don't know. I mean, well, she was screaming when I first like came into the room. She was like, "No, like I'm not talking to you. Like get the out of here," all that.
While fast-paced and phrased in an accusatory manner, all the questions up to this point were suggesting assault. There was no mention of anything to do with the loss of consciousness or death at all. But watch from this point, as all of a sudden that changes, bringing with it a stale implication for George.
At any point, before you said you, and this was your words, you said you tossed her on the bed. At any point before that, did she lose consciousness?
No.
What happened after you tossed her on the bed? Did she move? Did she talk about, say something?
I mean, I literally tossed her on the bed and turned around and
Tossed her on the ground or tossed her
on the bed and
Tossed her on the
walked
bed.
out the door.
Okay. Did she still have her t-shirt on at that point?
Yeah.
Or did that get ripped off?
Yeah. I mean, she had her t-shirt on the entire time. She was never not unclothed.
All right. So you didn't sexually assault her or anything?
No.
Were the lights on And did you turn them
The
on?
lights were...
For you to be able to see.
The lights were not on. No.
How did you see the blood and stuff come from her nose?
Because she's got a big bay window right by her room, and there's lights from the parking lot.
Okay.
That it's not hard. It's easy to see.
Okay. So when you tossed her back on the bed, in your mind, she was bleeding. But you said she was bleeding out her nose, and you didn't feel like you needed to call rescue
No.
after that, after banging her head and
No,
shaking her and blood coming out her nose on the floor.
No. I mean, it was.
Let me ask you this: did you when you left out there, were you kind of like she got what she deserved? Is that why you didn't call 911?
No. It wasn't about that for me. It was about going to talk to her.
With the more serious questions and allegations building up, George becomes far more defensive and panicked. But as far as he knows, he's still just here on suspicion of assault. That is, until this sudden chilling moments that this entire interview was building up to, when George's entire world is ripped out from beneath him.
Well, I have to tell you something.
Well, I think I know why you took the computer.
Why do you think?
Is
Go
that
ahead,
right?
go ahead.
You know?
Yeah.
She's dead. You killed her, George. You killed her.
She's dead?
I think you knew that already.
No, I did not. How the is she dead?
Because you killed her, George.
How the is she dead?
Because you killed her.
We're not here for any reason, George. And that's why you took the computer, isn't it?
No.
Because you had threats to kill her on that from a past email. Because she hooked up with a player from UNC.
The heat of the moment. It was the heat of the moment. Yeah.
Last night was heat of the moment too, wasn't it? You went in there to talk with her, but it got out of control, right, George? The alcohol got a hold of you. You kicked in her door. She started to fight with you. You punched her in the head, or you cracked.
She's not dead.
You cracked her head.
Dead.
You cracked her head in the window or in the wall.
Not dead.
She is.
She's not dead.
I ain't BSing you right now. It's serious, George.
She is dead.
You were not here to dance with us. You're here because she's dead. The alcohol.
I don't believe it. I don't believe
It's
it.
true.
Dude, I didn't.
Listen to me. You went in there. You kicked the door. She got a little feisty. You either punched her, or you smacked her head into the concrete, and then you held her down on the pillow because that's what
No, I didn't hit her on the pillow. I was never on the bed.
Okay, then. Did you punch her? Did you hit her?
How? There's no way she's dead. She's not dead.
Listen to me.
She's not dead.
Did you punch her or did
No, I never know.
Did you hold her head into the wall? Did you crack it?
No.
Did you
Is her
smack
head cracked?
Did you smack her head in the wall?
No, she's not dead. She's not dead. You guys said she has a black eye and a bump on her head.
She has those things.
But she's not dead. I did not.
All right, let's calm down.
I did not like hurt her. Like she's not dead.
Let him calm down. Calm down a minute, George. Okay.
Tell me she's not dead. Tell me she's not dead.
I want you to calm down right now. Okay.
Will you tell me she's not dead?
Relax.
Please, will you tell me?
You know what? I wish I could tell you that, George. 22-year-old. 22, and her life is done.
Kill me. She can't be dead. She can't be dead.
This 4 minutes of footage contains one of the most raw emotional reactions that have ever been caught on camera in a police interrogation. George is suddenly made aware of the fact that he, intentionally or not, took the life of his 22-year-old girlfriend of over 2.5 years. Because of his reaction to the news in this tape, it was eventually decided that the murder of Yardley Love was not premeditated. But still, on August 30th, 2012, George Hughley was sentenced to 23 years in prison for the second-degree murder of his ex-girlfriend, Yardley Love.